Connor, I need you to make video about Justice League game be over so I can know how it end.
Because you made, yeah, you.
just watch the video I sent.
I could, but I would like an easily digestible movie turtle video. Thank you.
She's so real for that.
Did you watch that, Phil?
I didn't watch the video you sent, but I've seen everybody on Twitter talking about it. But still, I would like to see you make a video because I was thinking about your
context.
initial review that you put out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so crazy. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. So if you don't know, way back in February 2024, I reviewed Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and gave my thoughts and opinions on the game. Obviously, I'm not going to explain that whole 30-minute long video again here. You can go watch it for yourself. But long story short, I enjoyed the story of the game but was disappointed that it had no ending, and I thought the gameplay was serviceable enough. The story followed the Suicide Squad as they killed various members of the Justice League as they were mind-controlled by Brainiac. In the game's third act, we learn that Brainiac has created a hive mind with himself and 12 other Brainiacs, 13 in total. And so before the game has a story ending, the game just stops. And we're left with the post-launch story content. This is pretty usual for live service games to continue their story post-launch. However, the problem with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is no one cared. The game was scathed at launch for just the initial, base game, so let alone people coming back for more. That being said, I did come back for part of it, and I have watched other people play through and watch the cutscenes of what was left that I didn't play myself. And let's just say I'm not exactly thrilled with what I saw. So let's get into the messy post-launch world of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Here I'd like to talk a little bit about the gameplay, but mostly the story choices. The reason I say only a little bit about the gameplay is because it is just the same handful of missions from the launch game again. Unfortunately, whether it was budget constraints or a lack of creativity, the post-launch content is just the same handful of missions from the main game, where you escort a vehicle, or you protect civilians as they load up into a bus, or you destroy this tower. Rinse and repeat. And with that comes my first problem with the post-launch content, and that is that with each season, we got 4 seasons in total, with each season introduce a new playable character. However, you don't just get that playable character right at the start, because why would you? Instead, you have to play a million missions to unlock this new character, or you can instantly unlock them for $10, because of course we have to monetize the game to hell. And with these new characters, we are still stuck in the 4-player rotation, and so again, these new characters, I'm not going to get too much into their gameplay mechanics, because it ultimately doesn't matter, because like I talked about in my initial review, everyone just uses guns. So yes, they have like their own unique traversal and their own unique melee animations, but it's all the same buttons, it all does the same thing. And something I immediately want to touch on, because I mentioned it in my initial review, is the season of. Each episode is what they call, there are 8 episodes in total, 2 per season. And each episode has a episode of freeze or episode of fear, and these are when you focus on Scarecrow or Two-Face or Mr. Freeze. And in my initial review I was like, oh, I hope that means Scarecrow's gonna show up. And I don't know why I thought that. Those labels are just there for the guns and their nerfs and buffs. So for example, like during the Scarecrow season, they would say that, oh, the fear bullets deal more damage. And frankly, it can get a bit annoying, because then they add stuff where it's like, oh, during the freeze season, your fire bullets don't deal any damage. And it's frustrating, because it's like, ugh, I've spent all my upgrade points, upgrading my fire guns. And so ultimately, the gameplay is exactly the same as the base game. There's nothing new here to talk about. So let's go in season by season and just talk about the general broad story strokes that they took and what I think of them. Oh, also, by the way, I did play season 1. However, I don't have much of my gameplay footage. I did delete it because I did film a season 1 thoughts video, But then it was also like, I don't really have any thoughts because it's the same as the base game. And so I deleted that video. And so I am working with a combination of my own gameplay, but also I am using cutscene footage from Arkham videos. Go check them out. And so season 1, I actually played this one, and this is the season of the Joker. And so this is a new millennial version of the Joker. I know people hated on it when they introduced him. And so he's from a parallel Earth, obviously. And on his Earth, he was part of the Suicide Squad, and he actually ended up killing them to try to prevent their capture by Brainiac. And on his planet, Brainiac terraforms Metropolis using Joker's DNA. And frankly, there's no good reason why he would do this. Like, even when the characters talk about it in the game, they're like, I don't know why he did that. And so Joker escapes from Brainiac with no good explanation why. He just is able to escape from Brainiac, despite Brainiac being able to catch the likes of Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, and The Flash. And like I said, I know everybody wrote this off as like, oh, this isn't the Mark Hamill Joker. Like, what is this millennial woke Joker or whatever they're doing? But I think he is interesting, especially when the characters bring up past events with the core Arkham Joker. And so in this first season, you have to grind. You have to level up. Every season your level resets, which sounds ridiculous because it is. Your level resets to 0, and you have to level up to a certain level to be able to go fight the Brainiac of that season. And before you can get the character of that season, you have to beat there's 2 Brainiacs per season. You have to beat the first Brainiac to get the playable character. And so to go get the Joker, the team goes to face Brainiac 2, which is just the Green Lantern fight from the main story again. Which, again, I think is insane that they thought they could just copy and paste this boss fight 13 times. Remember, there was supposed to be 13 Brainiacs in total. And the fact that all they could come up with, or maybe all they could afford, again, I don't want to besmirch any of the developers who tried, but yeah, I mean, the fact that it's just the same fight again is so disappointing and boring, frankly. And during all of this, it's not really explained, but Joker knows that Green Lantern is alive and being experimented on in Brainiac's ship, which we'll learn kind of an explanation for in a little bit. But for now, let's continue on with how the information is given to us at the time. And so after you unlock Joker, then you have to grind out more missions, more levels, and go fight the third Brainiac. Yes, I'm sure you're picking up a pattern here. The post-game content is just play all the same missions again and go fight Brainiac again. And again. And again. And I can't believe that they truly thought they could just make you do the same thing 13 times. But don't worry, because Brainiac 3 is a copy of the Superman fight. Get used to it. You're going to be doing these same fights over and over again. And just like in the main game, Lois Lane reports as you complete missions, which I thought was a nice touch that they at least brought that voice actress back for the DLC content. One of her first reports is that people online are standing Joker 2, and I think that's great. Like, I guess I shouldn't be crazy because look at the way our culture treats like serial killers and things like that with their biopics and whatnot. And then we also learned that this season, the other gimmick, how like I said, they don't introduce any new enemy types. The other gimmick they tried to do is they introduce these like infused enemies where they're supposed to be infused with the powers of the Justice League. So, for example, the Batman ones are like invisible until you get close enough to see them, or the Flash ones, run around at super speed. The Green Lantern ones have like extra armor, like they have constructs on them. And so, of course, Lois reports that Brainiac is infusing his forces with Green Lantern powers, which I think they kind of explain ish through some dialogue that's how Waller and everybody knows that Green Lantern is alive, because Brainiac is somehow still infusing his forces with Green Lantern power. And that's pretty much all Season 1 had to offer. Again, nothing much. A lot of the story is also told through motion comics, which is obviously a cost-cutting measure. It's a little bit of a bummer that they couldn't fully animate these cutscenes in CG like the entire story is in the main campaign. So again, very bare-bones story. We went and got Joker and we killed 2 more Brainiacs, and we know that Green Lantern is alive. So then we move into Season 2, where we meet Mrs. Freeze. And this is not Nora Freeze, like I had previously speculated. This is a gender-bent Victor Freeze. She is Victoria Freeze. And she is from an Earth where Brainiac plunged her Earth into the Ice Age again. And so she had to modify herself to survive Brainiac's Ice Age on her planet. I also liked, cute little detail that in the motion comic, her Amanda Waller is the original design for Amanda Waller. You're going to notice that a lot of the story for this post-game content takes place off-screen. Like, for example, we learned that the Flash is alive. Because Waller had a hunch that, just like Green Lantern, where Brainiac is, again, releasing these Justice League-infused troops, that the Flash might still be alive. And so they did a scan, and they found his Speed Force signature on the Skull ship. And so Mrs. Freeze agrees to help the squad retrieve Flash in exchange for helping to save Nora. Nora is, of course, the love interest of Victor Freeze and clearly Victoria Freeze. They're kind of together on every Earth. I do like that detail. That's kind of Victor's whole thing. That's why he's a villain, because he's trying to save his wife, and he can't afford or have the resources to do it in the legal way. So after the squad helps Victoria retrieve Nora from Brainiac, then the team goes to fight Brainiac number 4. And don't worry, we've totally reinvented the wheel here, because guess what? It's not a Superman or a Flash or a Green Lantern fight. Now it's Superman and the Flash, where he flip-flops after you do so much damage between the Flash or Superman. Again, same fighting mechanics, same thing, but, now we kind of switch halfway through the fight. Again, insane. I do like the idea of him playing with the League's powers, because he even mentions the idea of, I am a League of my own now. And I kind of had that theory that he was experimenting with their DNA back in the main game. But again, even with this attempt, it's still the same fight. So after they defeat Brainiac 4, they free the Flash, and this is where things get messy. Because Victoria Freeze puts Flash in stasis to heal, like Nora, and she notes that he was dead, but has been revived by Brainiac. And if you remember, that was my theory back in the original game, because Brainiac took the bodies after every boss fight. And Boomerang even comments about how he's missing his finger, because Boomerang cuts it off at the beginning of the game. But don't worry, this will get messier as we continue on into the post-launch content. So don't feel justified in that theory just quite yet. Also, during all of this, Victoria notes that Brainiac is acting out of character, but don't worry, that'll be never touched on again. I truly don't know what they were going for here. I don't know if they were trying to be meta or self-aware, they were trying to get ahead of the criticism, how everybody was complaining about, oh, Brainiac's not really a multiversal villain and things like that. But it's too late. So after all that, Victoria joins the squad officially, and they go to fight the 5th Brainiac. And how, like I said, Brainiac 4 was the combo fight? Don't worry, Brainiac 5 is just a Green Lantern fight. And just like I said, we have the Lois Lane reports all season. Lois reports on Mrs. Freeze joining the squad, where she drops the little tidbit that Mr. Freeze has not been seen since the ending in Arkham Knight, which is fitting because I always assumed he went off to die at the end of Arkham Knight. There is also a crazy story element here that is dropped in the Lois Lane reports that I think is insane that you would put in something that can be so easily missed, because, the Lois Lane reports happen during gameplay when you're swinging around the city. You could easily just not stop to listen to her message on the billboard. And this is where she confirms to the public that Flash is alive, everybody rejoice. However, she makes the remark that Flash is under control of Amanda Waller due to the Argus tech used to revive him and heal him. And again, this'll come back at the end of the game, but crazy information to add there. You know, that wasn't in any major cutscene or any major dialogue. Like, that's a totally missable piece of information that you just wouldn't get. Also, we're starting to see the cracks where, like we said, this game was a huge financial flop, and so WB pulled the plug on them and said, like, you get these 4 seasons that you already made, and that's it. Because, as Arkham Video points out, in one of Lois's broadcasts, she has missing dialogue, but the broadcast still has the animation. It's literally Lois sitting on the TV. She's just moving her mouth, but there is no dialogue. Which, I mean, I don't know how that would get... I mean, I know how it got through because, like, let's be truthful, let's be honest. Once this game wasn't successful, WB probably wiped all the employees out and left just a skeleton crew to finish these 4 seasons of DLC. So big takeaways from Season 2. The Flash is back. He was revived after his death, and he is now under the control of Amanda Waller. And that leads us all into Season 3, where we meet Lawless. Lawless is the daughter of Deadshot, and she serves as a Robin Hood of Gotham. You know, she steals from the rich and gives to the poor. And this is a character I'm not totally familiar with. And frankly, I think it's very weird because she pretty much just plays like kind of a combination of Harley and Deadshot from the streams that I've watched and the gameplay videos. But her big reason for being here is that the mainstream media is covering up the Brainiac invasion. So she goes in to expose it, because she's like a hacker live streamer type character. So she is from what I'm calling Earth Prime, you know, the Arkham Earth, the main Earth that we're on, Earth Prime. So she's from Earth Prime, but she decided to take it into her own hands and kind of explore the multiverse from whatever crazy technology she must have built herself, and discovered an Earth where Brainiac merged Metropolis and Gotham. And while she's universe hopping, she discovers that Green Lantern is alive, even though we already knew that way back in Season 1 with all the Joker nonsense. But she contacts Amanda Waller / her dad, and that's where then the team have to go extract Lantern from the Skull Ship. And so during this escape, Brainiac does capture Lawless, however the team gets away with Green Lantern. And it has this really weird cutscene where he still has the purple Brainiac eyes while asking them for help and everything. Versus we saw in the main game that when Barry was, you know, released from the mind control by the Lasso of Truth, that his eyes returned to normal. So I'm not really sure, like, I truly feel like it seems like an animation error / I don't even know if there was a model made in-game of a clean... Or, no, there is, because he's in the Hall of Justice. So, I don't know why they have him still with the Brainiac eyes when he's not being mind-controlled here. But anyways, they take him back and they put him in Stasis 2 to heal. Obviously insinuating that he too was dead and revived by Brainiac. So then, of course, Deadshot has to go get his daughter, and they fight Brainiac 6, which is just a combination fight of Superman and Green Lantern. Again, what a recycled... I mean, I didn't even play this, and I can't imagine doing it that many times. I liked the Green Lantern fight in the main game, but I don't know if I would like it if I had to do it 6 times or more, however many it is when you add them all up finally. But once they get her out, Lawless then joins the team, much to Deadshot's disinterest. And so with their new member of the team, they go off to face Brainiac 7, who is on the Gotham, you know, Metropolis, scary Earth. And they fight Brainiac 7, which is shockingly the exact same fight again as Brainiac 6 of Superman and Green Lantern. They didn't even try to change it between. They just did the same fight back to back. They didn't even try to, like, throw some variety in there and like make, oh, this one's a Flash fight. No, it's just the same fight again. Which is also crazy that neither of the Brainiac fights that take place on this like Gotham Metropolis Earth have anything to do with Batman. Like, I know Batman was the weird like fear toxin dream sequence, and so how do you do that with Brainiac? And, you know, Batman doesn't have superpowers for Brainiac to mimic. But it's so crazy. Disrespectful. I also thought it was interesting, though, that it almost insinuates from Lois Lane's reports that this version of Gotham that's being merged with Metropolis, almost it seems like it's from a world where Scarecrow won in Arkham Knight, because Lois makes the remark that it's all covered in fear toxin, like stay away from it. And Lois does the same thing she does with the Flash, where she tells everyone Green Lantern's alive, but again, in a crazy bit of exposition that's totally missable, he's under the control of Amanda Waller and Argus because of his revival. And this is the point in the game where the plug was definitely pulled. We were told that Season 4 is the last season, this is it. And so, if you might notice, we only have 2 out of 5 Justice League members. And so with these 2 members of the League, we head into Season 4, where we introduce the character everyone wanted the most. Like, I know people complained about the Millennial Joker and, you know, Gen Z Lawless. But in Season 4, we finally got Deathstroke, you know, the Terminator, Slade Wilson. And this is, interestingly enough, the same Deathstroke from the other Arkham games. He makes the remark about everything that happened beforehand, and that Amanda Waller then recruits him for the squad when the Brainiac invasion starts, which I thought was interesting because they also reference that he's worked for the squad before, which I think is a reference to the ending of Arkham Origins, because that was supposed to set up a Suicide Squad game from W Montreal that never happened. And so I'm going to run with him saying that he's worked with Amanda before as a reference to that. Oh, and by the way, if you missed it in his opening cutscene, he's already killed Brainiacs 8 through 11. Off screen. If you didn't need more evidence that we have pulled the plug and we need to wrap this shit up. Everybody else has some kind of like joining the squad cutscene that's like CG. Everything of Deathstroke's is done in the comic art, except for his one little animation sequence. Because he is trapped on a medieval Elseworld, and so the team is sent to go kill Brainiac number 12 and retrieve Deathstroke. And even then, there's no cutscene. Every Brainiac fight starts with the same animation of him. He turns around to face the squad, and then he floats up and becomes the Justice League member that's going to fight you. But this one doesn't have that animation, for whatever reason, even though they've been reusing the same animation every time. Instead, you just fight a crazy number of goons, and then when Brainiac comes down and is like, okay, now let's fight, he gets stabbed by Deathstroke. And Deathstroke's like, hey guys, what's up? And there you go. That's Deathstroke's intro to the game, and that's the last CG cutscene of the game. If you couldn't tell, we are running on fumes here, people. This is the end of the game. This is it. And so before I get into the game, I'm going to talk about the Lois Lane reports now. She talks about the medieval world convergence, but she also talks about her concern that Argus has control over the Suicide Squad and now 2 out of the 5 members of the Justice League, with her having revived Flash and Green Lantern. Make note of that, because that is incredibly important to the ending of the game. And so with that, Lois lets the player / anyone who hasn't been paying attention or might have missed that Deathstroke killed all the other Brainiacs, that this is it. This is the last final Brainiac, where she wishes the squad luck. And she also makes note that Brainiac's skull ship is slowly decaying. It has been falling apart with every Brainiac the squad defeats. And so away the squad goes to face what I am calling Brainiac Prime, you know, the final Brainiac. And of course, they plan to recover Batman and Superman while they're there, and Green Lantern and Flash accompany you. However, I don't know if this is a weird one of those we had nobody else to work on it or nobody to fix it or second check our work, peer review. But Green Lantern and Flash's voices still have like the mechanical modulation that they do when they're under the mind control of Brainiac.
Your crimes are numerous, Brainiac, but I will personally see that you are brought to justice.
Again, I don't know if that's just supposed to be like, oh, that's what Green Lantern sounds like when he's using his ring or whatever, but I think it's weird. It's odd that they sound... He still sounds evil, even though he's saying, like, heroic things. And so the squad fights what I'm calling Brainiac Prime. And this is the big one. He does all 3 versions of the fight. He becomes Flash, into Green Lantern, into Superman. So you get to replay all 3 boss fights right back to back. And at the end of this one, Brainiac tries to flee. He makes the remark of like, oh, what you don't have is interdimensional teleportation like I do. Even though that's all we've been doing the entire back half of the game. But before he can, Superman and Batman break out of these cocoons that we've seen in Brainiac's ship in like the concept art. So Batman and Superman break out, which again, woohoo, Batman and Superman are alive, Everybody was so mad of like, oh, they killed Arkham Batman, it's so disrespectful. And it's like, okay, here you go, he's alive, just like we all, or at least I, we all knew they were coming back. Like, we all theorized that, if you gave it any sort of thought at all. So they take Brainiac Prime down, and this is where things do get really messy. And this is, like I said, this is the ending I wanted. But it is so rushed, and it's in the motion comic. So, it's a lot of just, and nobody's voiced. It's just Harley in voiceover saying everything. And, she does like her Batman impression and her Superman impression. And so it is a little bit of a bummer that you couldn't have Nolan North do one last little line as Superman, or that they didn't have anything for Kevin Conroy to be, the good Batman one last time. Again, it's the ending I wanted, but God, it's a mess. Because this is where Batman then lays out all the exposition, and he does this in like 10 seconds because we're rushing. This cutscene's literally like a minute long. And he says the squad followed his plan perfectly. But I'm going to be frank, I don't know what the plan was. Like, I don't know what he means by the plan. Maybe somebody in the comments down below can tell me if I missed something. Again, like I said, I only played Season 1, and then I watched people stream and other videos of the other seasons. So maybe I missed it. And then this is where Batman drops the bombshell on the characters and the player, where he says that all of the League members that the squad killed were just clones. They were just Brainiac-grown clones. Even though, if you recall, we've been told that the Flash and Green Lantern were dead. That they had been revived by Brainiac tech. And then Nora put them in stasis to return them to their normal selves. And that they have, like, the bombs or whatever that the Suicide Squad have in them as well. Like, I can't tell if it's bad writing or if it's just, they had so many teams, this team is working on Season 1 while this team is working on Season 3, and over here Season 4, and back there is Season 2. And so everybody got confused of what the plan was. Because, yeah. And basically there are 2 explanations I see here. The first one that's pretty messy and convoluted is that Flash and Lantern were real and they actually died. And they were then revived and brought back by the squad. Meanwhile, the Batman and Superman that were killed were clones. Which would sort of, I mean, clearly you can say that the Superman was a clone because the kryptonite in the main story doesn't work on him. Which I originally chalked up to Brainiac altering his DNA too much, because they mentioned that in the main story too, that all of their DNA is not normal human DNA, which now we're saying is because they were clones. Because again, the reason I feel like it was supposed to be that they were real and brought back to life is because, like I said, back in season 3, when you rescue Green Lantern, he has the purple Brainiac eyes. And again, it could just be they weren't going to animate a new model. You know, they already had the purple eye model, and so they just used it. But, yeah, why would he have the purple Brainiac eyes if he wasn't the actual mind-controlled one flying all over and it was just a clone? The other explanation is very straightforward, and frankly the one that probably the game devs intend, and that's just that, yeah, they were all clones and no one except Batman realized that. And, you know, Nora and Amanda Waller and everyone who thought they brought back Green Lantern and the Flash were actually, no, they were just clones. Nothing more to it than that. One key thing I look at is King Shark being able to use Green Lantern's ring in the main story. If you remember from my review, I thought it was a fun moment. But I know a lot of people complained because I know that's not how it works in the comics. You can't just pick up a Green Lantern ring and put it on. But again, I just chalked it up to this game is very silly. But maybe it's because it was actually a ring made by Brainiac for his little clone lantern. Ultimately, I think no matter what the answer is, it's chalked up to bad / poorly planned writing of either there was no plan or the plan had to be greatly shifted because of the cancellation of the game. But if you remember, Lois Lane has told us in her broadcast that Argus has control over Lantern and the Flash. And so because of this, the League and the Squad escape into the multiverse to avoid being under Waller's control. You know, the League says they're going to go atone and help, you know, fix all these Earths that Brainiac messed up. Meanwhile, the Squad just says they're going to go off and party in the multiverse. And even though I don't think, you know, like the bomb remote would work across the multiverse, they do throw in that hack turned off everybody's bombs. And I think this ending's funny because it's almost the opposite of what I predicted. I said in my original video they would either bring the Justice League back to life or bring a Justice League from a different Earth here to Earth Prime. But instead, the Earth Prime Justice League and Suicide Squad are now going off into the multiverse to get away from Amanda Waller. Which is a bit of a lame, you know, kind of excuse, frankly. You know, you're telling me Superman and Batman are gonna run from Amanda Waller? Even though we've seen how many countless times they don't do that. Also, in all this, like, yay, Arkham Batman is alive and Superman's back up. I think we're forgetting that there are 5 members of this Justice League. Yeah, Wonder Woman is dead. She got fried by the evil Superman clone. And she was never captured by Brainiac to be duplicated. So Wonder Woman is just actually dead, which is kind of a bummer. Like, I guess, what else do you do but bring in a Wonder Woman from a different dimension? Yeah, a bit of a bummer for her. But that's okay. She's getting her own game, maybe, if it ever comes out. And with that, Waller then takes credit for defeating Brainiac. The Squad / the League give her Brainiac. They did not kill Brainiac Prime, interestingly enough. And Lois Lane blackmails Waller to keep quiet about the Squad and the Justice League. Because the Justice League and Suicide Squad give Lois all the information about Task Force X. Something I thought was really interesting is this game is full of audio logs, which I assume is just because you can have a voice actor just sit there, even in their home recording booth or closet, and record an audio log versus a CG cutscene, or even the comic cutscene has to be animated. But in audio logs at the end of the game after you beat it, it is revealed that Waller has put a bomb in Brainiac's neck, you know, the Suicide Squad bomb, and he is locked away in Bel Rev, which I think is an insane and so anticlimactic ending for Brainiac, especially this huge multiversal Brainiac. Like, you're telling me he just gets a bomb put in his neck and he literally is just in a normal prison cell? But that's it. that Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. Is it the ending I wanted? I mean, sort of. But we got here in quite a messy and rushed way because of the live service aspect of the game. You see, if you really want to look at what went wrong, you see that no one was interested in the live service aspect. If you remember what I didn't even talk about the live service aspect of the game that much. In fact, it was like the only negative thing I said. I thought the story was interesting, and I was curious to see how it would unfold. Unfortunately, it was held back by the live service aspect. And a live service game has to make money to continue being a live service. And I don't know if you've seen the Steam charts or anything like that, but this game didn't make any money. And so it was downhill from launch. And for the life of me, typically when they introduce post-launch content into a game, it is new missions, new enemy types, new boss fights, things like that. And so I cannot even fathom why Rocksteady or WB Games or whoever's decision this was would think it was a good idea to have your player base repeat the same 5 missions over and over again for a year. Like I said, we are now in January of 2025. This game launched in February 2024. So for 11 months, the people who actually played the game all the way through have been doing the same missions where they blow up a tower, rescue hostages, escort a vehicle, and kill a Brainiac, who is just the recycled boss fights from the main story. Absolutely insane way to approach your live service game, and that's why it flopped. The story can be as interesting as you want it to be, and like I said, I do find the story kinda interesting. But if nobody wants to play your game, like me, one of the game's biggest defenders, I didn't want to play it. I don't want to fight Brainiac 12, 9. It wasn't actually all 13 times, it was only like 9 or 8 times, but still way too many. And so by the end of it, we had to barely crawl across the finish line. Like, I do not believe if this game had been successful and blown up and been the multi-million-dollar success they wanted / needed it to be, we would have gone beyond these 4 seasons. They would have probably given us like 1 Brainiac each season and drawn it out for 12 whole seasons, like 2-3 years. But instead we had to cut the ending short and wrap it all up through motion comics that don't even really move. Incredibly low budget. Like, we spent no money on the ending. I keep saying this because I'm so frustrated, because this is the exact fucking ending that I predicted all the way back in February. I said it in that video. But we got here in such a clunky, messed up way that we can't even clearly tell you if they were clones or if they were revived after death by Brainiac tech. Batman says it was clones, but Waller and Victoria Freeze say that they were dead and revived. And so which one is it? It's so messy. Such a clunky ending. The fact that the final cutscene couldn't even be CG because we had to cut so much corners is insane. And that's why the post-launch status of this game is so messy. Sorry I got a little crazy there. It's just, as this game's arguably maybe biggest defender at launch, it's so disappointing to see them fumble the bag so hard and just ruin it. Like, I don't want to say it was a waste of time, because I did enjoy the main story. But will I see myself returning to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? I don't know. I might replay the main story, but like I said, I can't see myself wanting to fight Brainiac 9 times just to get these motion comics I can just look up on the internet. The post-launch gameplay is nothing unique. The new characters bring nothing to the table. And there's no new enemies, no new boss fights. We just rinse and repeat and drop little tidbits of information until we can retcon the entire game. And so that is the messy ending of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. If you've played the game or watched the cutscenes, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when that next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.